My name is Jochem de Groot. I'm a Senior Policy Advisor for the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Internet freedom, human rights online. There is often a perceived conflict between cybersecurity and personal privacy, but as long as there's a rule of law, an independent judiciary, and oversight, they don't have to necessarily be conflicting. However, I do think that there's a lot of countries that are in transitional phases or do lack an independent rule of law where they do conflict because cybersecurity measures are often very broadly defined and can be abused. The language in them can be abused for all kinds of political purposes as well. The basic principle I think we must continue to embrace is that rights online are the same as rights offline, meaning that oversight of people's rights is extremely important both on and offline. The problem being that we're only learning by doing at this point in terms of what that means to respect people's rights online. And I hope that in an ideal world we would have to assure that online rights are respected in a way that really reflect the diversity of new issues that are on the table. The amount of information that's available online is so enormous that it would be easy for governments to abuse that information for all kinds of purposes. We're at a stage right now where we're really experimenting with how much information a government or law enforcement can take to ensure the rule of law. I think there's enough pressure, there's enough advocacy of civil society organizations, politicians and others pressuring governments to ensure the privacy of users, but the way in which we describe what's necessary and what's not is extremely important. We see developments where some countries are very broad in defining what is necessary to protect integrity of states, to counter cyber terrorism, cybercrime, and other ways in which the internet is abused. If you are really clear about what is and what's not permissible in terms of law enforcement, then you can achieve a balance in citizens' rights and privacy, while at the same time using as much information as you can to go against cybercrime and other abuse of the internet. In terms of the responsibilities of states to counter cybercrime, I think there's a very important principle not to forget. Liberal democracies are responsible for two fundamental pillars. On the one hand, they have to guarantee the freedom, individual liberties of their citizens. On the other hand, they are also responsible for the security. And this is something that also translates in an online world. It is very difficult to achieve a balance if more and more online movements ask for new answers to new problems. Our basic principle should be that offline rights also apply online, but if online rights are not defined in a way that we have experienced with them offline, we have to really look at proportionality and applicability of them in a case-by-case basis, taking a basic standpoint that digital rights are our starting point. There is an international digital arms race and it is intensifying. The extreme amount of technology that's being abused by authoritarian regimes often comes from developers and companies in the West. And this is something that worries us and that we feel we must make clear rules about. Self-regulation is not enough in this sense. This is why the Netherlands government has proposed time and again in the European Union to assure that we include certain types of technology under the dual use directive that puts it on par with certain types of weapons trade. We believe that it is clear that some countries will, if they get access to certain types of technology, will abuse it for human rights infringement, and we must stop this. I don't think we should perceive digital arms to be any different than other arms. And that's also why we've proposed in the European Union to include certain types of tools and filter technology under the dual use directive of the European Union, meaning that certain types of weapons are prohibited from export, and under the same directive we should also include digital arms. We've come to a point in a global debate about internet freedom, internet governance and related themes whereby the example especially Western countries have in the middle long term is extremely important. A problem that I've I've come across time and again is that within the broader discussions about cyber policy, there's a lot of concentration on specific issues within cyber policy that people start specializing in and speaking about at length. Cybersecurity measures, privacy, intellectual property rights, human rights, digital rights issues, but there's no coherent policy made by governments to ensure that all these rights are balanced and respecting each other. One of the most important challenges, I think, in the middle long term is that we do identify a way in which all these cyber interests are balanced in some sort, and also what kind of policy implications we need to make coherent policy as governments that's going to be mirrored in the middle long term by all kinds of countries where only a very small minority of people do have access to the internet and ICT tools, because they are going to be looking at how we've done and balanced this right now in the middle long term. So setting a good example and ensuring coherent cyber policy is key for the middle long term respect of internet freedom.